clase. Continuamos trabajando con el presente subjuntivo. El tema de este video es ¿cuándo usamos el presente subjuntivo en español? We have been working with these sentences so you are familiarized with them. These are ejemplos con verbos irregulares. La oración, the sentence número 1. La oración número 1 tiene el verbo dar, to give, and it's conjugated in the subjunctive form right here. Do this. So let's see in details what this sentence is providing in order for us to use the subjunctive. To do so, we are going to check cuáles son las partes de la oración. So what are the parts of the sentence? Ojo, in order to use the subjunctive, we need to fulfill these requirements. So we gotta be sure that our sentence has all these requirements listed here. That way, we are able to use the subjunctive. Otherwise, do not use it. Okay? So let's review this section. It is important. It is important. It's a trigger for the subjunctive. And why is that? Because it's an expression that implies uncertainty. It is important that you give advice to your brother. It could be that you find the right situation to provide this advice to your brother, or it could be that it never happened. So the fact that something is important, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen or that it's not going to happen. We really don't know. And for this reason, this is an uncertain situation. And when we are in situations like this, is when we can use the subjunctive. But that's not the only thing. We also need to consider if we have an independent clause, a dependent clause, the conjunction that in español is que, and also a change of subject. So in this sentence, it is important. It is my subject number 1. In español, you're not going to see it because it is implied in the verb es importante. But it's right there. It's very clear in English, so we can identify that we have a first subject. Can you see subject number 2? Is there a second subject in this sentence? Sí, es la palabra tú, you. You are the second subject in this sentence. So far, we have all these elements. We have subject number 1, we have subject number 2. We also have the conjunction that. In español, as we saw, it is important. It's a trigger for the subjunctive because it represents a situation that it's uncertain. And at the same time, this is considered the independent clause because it stands on its own. It's a sentence by itself. It doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need anybody else. Now, following es importante, we have que, that is the conjunction, and then we have tú des un buen consejo a tu hermano. So this part of the sentence is called a dependent clause because it cannot stand on its own. So it's going to need the section of the independent clause in order to make sense. So as you can see again, right here, our requirements to use the subjunctive are to have a situation that is uncertain and it triggers the subjunctive. So in this case, it's in the independent clause and its expression es importante. We also need the conjunction que that connects both parts of the sentence, the independent clause and the dependent clause. And we also have 2 different subjects. In the first part of the sentence, that is the independent clause, the verb is being conjugated in the present indicative. The subjunctive is used in the dependent clause section only. Okay, so remember, your present subjunctive is going to be on the dependent clause, the second part of your sentence. We're going to see this example, but in a different format here, because this is more similar to what the practice that is coming up it's about. Okay, you will need to identify in this practice what are the requirements in order to use the subjunctive, and if our sentence fulfills all these requirements. So again, is there an uncertain situation? Number one, sí o no. Sí. Es importante triggers an uncertain situation, it triggers the subjunctive. Is there an independent clause? Yes, because es importante, it's a sentence on its own. Dependent clause, it starts with que tú des un buen consejo a tu hermano. Is there a conjunction? Yes, the conjunction is que. And finally, do you remember if there was a change of subject? Sí. The first subject is implying the verb, in this case, es importante, and the second subject is tú. So, can the verb in the subjunctive be in the dependent clause in this case? Sí. We have everything that we need in order to use the subjunctive. Ojo, if there is one thing that you are missing from all the requirements that we need in order to use the subjunctive, then you cannot use it at all. Alrighty? So let's check un ejemplo más. Partes de la oración. El verbo saber. Yo deseo que todos los estudiantes sepan la conjugación del subjuntivo. Let's see if we have all the requirements. I wish that all students know the conjugation of the subjunctive. So, subject number one is I. What is my subject number two? All students. Very good. Muy bien. And now we have my conjunction that. And here en la versión en español, I have the translation for I wish is yo deseo. So now, again, because we wish something, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. So it triggers the subjunctive because it's an uncertain situation. Yo deseo is the independent clause. We have the conjunction que, and then we have our dependent clause. Que todos los estudiantes sepan la conjugación del subjuntivo. So right here, yo deseo is in the present indicative because this is the independent clause. And then where is the subjunctive? Very good. It is part of the dependent clause. And since I have my second subject right here, todos los estudiantes, then I do conjugate the verb in the subjunctive for this second subject. Okay? So right there, I have sepan. That is the subjunctive form for todos los estudiantes of the verb saber. Very good. So now let's review this again in this format. Is there uncertainty? Yes, because the verb to wish doesn't mean that something is going to happen, right? So there is uncertainty right there that triggers the subjunctive. Is there an independent clause? Sí? No? What is it? Very good. Yo deseo. Muy bien. What about the dependent clause? Where does it start? It starts with que. So, que todos los estudiantes sepan la conjugación del subjuntivo. Is there a conjunction? Muy bien. La conjunción es que. And is there a change of subject? Sí. What is my first subject? Yo. Correcto. And what is my second subject? Todos los estudiantes. Entonces, clase, can the verb in the subjunctive be in the dependent clause? Sí, muy bien, muy bien. So, I hope this was clear for you. Ahora es tu turno a practicar. In this Blackboard activity, you need to identify if the following sentences contain all the 5 requirements to use the present subjunctive. Okay, so if you need more guidance To complete the assignment, I'm providing a second video for this section. Muchas gracias.